Nick, a pretty exciting night last night for Saints fans and anybody who follows this team. In your opinion, was the quarterback question answered emphatically last night?
I don't think you could have possibly any other take except that it was emphatically answered last night. I mean, I thought the performance by Jameis Winston is about as good as it possibly could have been. I mean, he missed one throw. It was on 3rd and 16, passed to the flat, didn't try to force it down the field. So even though the execution wasn't there on the one miss, the decision I think was really good. And those are the decisions that you want to see from him. And those are the situations where you want to see Jameis Winston just take a step back, live for the next set of downs, and not try to do too much. So I think that miss, there was even a positive within it. But man, the things he's able to do out there, the way he reads coverage, just some of the high level quarterbacking stuff that he does. And I don't mean this is a knock on Taysom Hill or anything. I just think there's things that Jameis can do as a 8-year veteran in the NFL that Taysom just can't do yet because he doesn't have the experience in the reps. And, Jameis is just there. I mean, and you see a guy that looks like he's starting to put it together. I think as the season goes on, he's going to have to continue to prove that it's, good Jameis and not bad Jameis with the decision making. But as far as all the signs right now, I mean, day after day, and, you look at every practice. I mean, I think there's maybe 2 or 3 throws that I've seen him make during practice where I'm kind of like, what are you doing? And, in a typical training camp, you'll see those decisions from Drew Brees. And, I covered Tom Brady for a while. There'd be a handful of plays where you'd be like, what's Tom doing on that play? So, I mean, 3 is a very small number. He's day after day answered the bell. And I thought last night, look, you guys have been in locker rooms, and I'll ask you, like, you see a guy perform at the starter, like, what are people in the locker room, how do you react to that? I mean, I just don't know how they can go a different direction.
Talking Nick Underhill here, New Orleans on football. Yeah, I mean, it like, he did better with the 2s. He did better with the 1s. He had slightly better practice numbers. He already had the lead coming into camp. Yeah, the competition was real. The competition is over. But interestingly, it's also kind of expected with Winston, right? The biggest unexpected story of this camp has to be Marquez Callaway. I know that y'all keep telling us that he's doing very well in practice, but it's one thing to hear that, especially during preseason camp. And then it's another thing to see him out there beating number 1 cornerbacks for these big plays and making just incredible catches. I mean, where's your head at in terms of kind of the potential of Callaway?
I think he can be really good. And look, when Mike Thomas comes back, I mean, if you don't think Marquez Callaway can't be a extremely good number 2 wide receiver next to Mike Thomas and making this a pretty good group, I mean, we just kind of have fundamentally different views of football because I don't see how you could have a different takeaway than that. I mean, look, can he carry the load at number 1 all season long? I mean, I don't know that yet. That's something that we'll see tested early in the season, like going against Stephon Gilmore, Jair Alexander, James Bradbury. I mean, I think those are going to be telling tests for him. But even if, those games aren't the greatest for him, I mean, by the time Mike comes back, he's at number 2. Mike's drawing that coverage. And I think Callaway can definitely, exploit some of that stuff against number 2 cornerbacks or games where he's not game planned against necessarily. But look, I mean, the things he's doing are outstanding. I mean, the 2 catches yesterday were, as good as it gets, as good as those throws were. I mean, they both required like a high level effort from the wide receiver just to locate the ball and contort himself into a position where he can make the catch, especially the first one. I mean, that was unbelievable that he was able to pull that ball in. But yeah, I mean, look, he hasn't even played, like, he's had one-handed catch in practice, and then, he comes out and he does this crazy stuff in the games, and it's next level. And, coming out of Tennessee, he was, I think, the leader in the SEC in yards per reception his last season there. So, yeah. I mean, it was kind of known that he had the ability to get downfield and do a little bit more. And then, last year with Brees, it was kind of limited to, 8-yard curl routes. And now that they can open up a little bit, he's able to show more of that stuff. And, look, I mean, that's the other thing in this game. With him being able to do that, Jameis able to get the ball down the field like that, I mean, it just opens everything up. And I think it allows you to be a little bit less precise everywhere on the field when they have to defend the whole field instead of just, the first 15 yards. And that's what made Brees a Hall of Famer is that, early in his career, well, really until 4 years ago, he could get the ball down the field like that. And, his efficiency underneath was next level good. I mean, most accurate passer of all time. Jameis isn't going to be that, but the fact that he can take the top off, safety's got to sit back. They can't line up at 13, 15-yard steps. I think it's going to make things a lot easier for everyone. So Callaway does that. Now Mike comes back. He has more room on the slants and crossing routes. I think the offense has a chance to be a little bit more explosive.
Nick, last week we were talking about running backs, and you had some underwhelming performances from some veteran running backs. And this week, kind of the same thing. Freeman averages 2.6 a carry. Murray is 1.5. But Tony Jones Jr., another solid day, averages almost 5 yards a carry. He got a lot of run in the game. I think he's solidified himself as an option at running back for the Saints. Could he play his way maybe into RB2 for this team?
He's running like he wants to be RB2, and I think he's doing everything to make that case. I thought some of the stuff about Latavius was a little premature last week. People were starting to put him on the bubble and everything. I still don't know if he's someone that gets cut, but I think that he's starting to look like he's in danger of losing some snaps. I don't know how you can watch it and not think that. Jones looks more explosive. His vision is really showing up week after. And for Murray, it isn't. And, even on that screen pass, I thought he cut it inside when he should have went outside. He had Cesar Ruiz and Andrew Speed on the outside of the tackle on that side of the field and should have went up the sideline, and he just left a lot of yardage on the field. So, if he's making those kind of mistakes and, he just hasn't looked quite as explosive as he has previously. Tony Jones going the way he's going, I don't know. I think that there's a real chance that he could be the number 2 running back this season. I think he's making as strong as a case as he can make. And, this is a team that really doesn't, care about who you are or where you came from. Once somebody's playing better, they usually go with that guy. And it just looks like Tony Jones is playing a little bit better than him. And then him being up in that top group in this game, he clearly climbed the depth chart last week, and then he showed what he could do against the Jags' number 1 defense. I think he's definitely in the mix for that RB2 spot.
All right, Nick, speaking of number 1 defense, one of the most impressive parts about this preseason for the Saints has been the number 1 defense. Now, look, they weren't playing the best offenses, obviously, so I don't know exactly what to make of it. But, King Crawley has felt solid. Adebo's played nicely, so some of your question marks there. And then the pass rush, the Marcus Davenport bull rush has been all but unstoppable. How are you feeling about how the Saints defense is rounding into shape here?
Each week I feel a little bit better about them. I think a lot of the concerns were on that side just because that group, I think we all agree, has to stay strong to kind of, in case that there's some deterioration on offense, they got to make sure points aren't getting on the board. The way Ken Crawley's played all camp, I think there's some hesitancy. There's definitely some hesitancy with me to go all the way there and kind of say, hey, they're all right. But the way he's played in camp, it feels like, hey, they're all right. He's showing up every day, breaks up passes, it seems like every single day in practice. And again, the level of competition has to be kept in context. The Saints, they don't have a bunch of Mike Thomases out there, and neither do the Jaguars, but you can only guard who's in front of you, and he's doing, exactly what I think he needs to do. He's getting his head around, seeing the ball, getting his hands on it. That's been the huge issue with him going all the way back to when he was at Colorado, his fall location. And he's doing that, it seems like, with confidence routinely. And, I think if he can keep that up, you kind of grip on and hope for the best. And right now, it kind of feels like Crawley might have a chance of getting back to that 2017 form, maybe even a little bit better. And, I'm just afraid to go all the way there, just based on kind of how his 2018 season went in the years after. But he's playing outstanding. You mentioned Davenport. I think he's at that point again. He's another guy that I'm always afraid to buy in on. But he's played so well, I'm ready to just look like an idiot and just buy all the way back in, because there's just no other way to look at him and think that he's not going to do what he needs to do this year. Every day, these games, he's dominating them. You mentioned the bull rush. It's unstoppable. He pulled out a spin move in this game that I'm not really sure I've seen him use before. So there's growth as a pass rusher. I think he's kind of figured out the key for him to be what he needs to be. And, overall, I think all levels of the defense, your questions are getting answered. Linebackers look really good. I still have questions about the interior rush. I haven't seen Jalen Dalton do in games kind of what he's done in practice. But Christian Ringo, I thought, had, I'll have to check because I haven't rewatched the game yet, but I had him, I think, with 4 pressures last night.
Okay, wow.
During the game. So he's getting after the quarterback. He got after the quarterback in the first game. So there's some options there. I mean, it's just, that Onyemata hole for 6 games, but the way things have gone this preseason, I think you feel a little bit better about getting to the other side of that just because everybody else around that spot has played so well.
Like, for anybody out there, because a lot of people think maybe we're being too optimistic here, but the bottom line is, it's not to say that any expectation or anything have greatly changed, but I think it would be impossible not to feel better about this team after what you saw last night in a couple of preseason games, given the questions that you needed answer. Nick, where can everybody find your work? What's going up in New Orleans on football?
We'll have the film study today, breaking everything down, position by position, player by player, and then just everything throughout the week as they round into shape. Hopefully there's a quarterback decision this week and Peyton doesn't try to hide it until the first game. But, I kind of feel like they have to show their hand in practice because you kind of got to start rolling with one guy. So we'll have practice reports and just everything going on with the team. New Orleans football.
There you go. New Orleans football, my favorite thing to out there. Nick, thank you so much, man.
Yeah, have a good one, guys.
Go follow Nick at Nick_Underhill. Yeah, I mean, that's my takeaway, right? It's not to say this team's going to win the NFC South or any jokes we've been making, but, I feel better, right? I feel better than I did previously because you've seen some guys step up. All right, let's close out the show with Ask the Bench. Brought to the Coors Light next here on OTB.